Are we going to be checking Paul Pierce's paperwork since he has recently been on a podcast, to talk about how American women lack the values that foreign women uphold?
Paul Pierce jumped out the window on this one. If there's any truth in what he said, I think American women are more entitled.
The dating and sexual marketplace, it's global now. You can't undo it.
Can we just acknowledge that, okay, if we have a problem with him saying that, there's only one way to fix it. Tell us that you're not that then. Show up in a way that says, hey, you know what? Paul's not right.
Speaking of checking paperwork, are we going to be checking Paul Pierce's paperwork since he has recently been on a podcast, to talk about how American women lack the values that foreign women uphold? As a matter of fact, he stated that folks should basically just get their passport and head overseas to get that woman because all American women do is twerk. So do you guys believe this is truth, trash, or is he speaking from a place of trauma?
All things can be true at one time. Okay, I don't necessarily hold that it's true. It is more trash, and I think it probably does come from some trauma. If I had to say, I'd say Paul Pierce jumped out the window on this one. I mean, I understand that. I think the conversation he's trying to make, and I know he got a lot of support from the passport bros and everything, but if we slow it down and we really look at it, okay, so what values are we talking about? We talking about submission? We talking about silence? We talking about hard work? What values are we talking about? Because I think what he's really talking about is the first two, right? What we talk about is less pushback, maybe a little less mouth. You know what I mean? Because when men say foreign women are more traditional and more feminine, I think they're thinking of like, the more Asian cultures or the women that are a lot quieter and more subdued or whatever. I'm surely not thinking about Latin American cultures because them women be spicy. So what they often mean, I think, is less likely to challenge them. And to be honest, some dudes don't want to challenge. They express love by their ability to control. But I'm not talking for those dudes, okay? And I'm not saying that femininity should be a performance. I feel like it should be unlocked. Women should be soft around whoever makes them feel soft. But I don't think that's what Paul Pierce is saying. And I don't think he's saying that foreign women have better coochie. You know what I'm saying? I don't think that's what he's saying, but I am happy to travel if I need to find out. I think what he's saying, though, is there's an element of expectation that exists in Western women. Not just expectation, entitlement. There's an element of entitlement. There's an element of I should have this simply because I breathe. Simply because I breathe and my skin is melanated. Simply because I breathe and I have WAP. I should have. And that is amazing because there's lots of women out there with vaginas. I think all of them. That's a whole other conversation from a previous show.
No, but go ahead.
That's a whole other conversation. And I'll land on this. I think that the real thing is that Black women are catching a little bit of that because when people are thinking about American women and they think about the virtues and values or whatever, and then here's Paul Pierce, a Black guy, saying it, you think he's talking about Black women, maybe. And you think, oh my God, he's talking about how, the stigmas of being too loud, too masculine, too independent. When, Black women will say that they've been this way because they feel like they were too unprotected or too underappreciated or too exhausted. You know what I mean? There's a balance to everything. There's another story for everything. I think that the truth, if there's any truth in what he said, the truth is that I think American women are more entitled. I think women from other countries a lot of them having been, at least especially the passport bro countries, having been in a place where they don't have access to as much luxury, as much of the frivolous things that discretionary spending can buy you. There's not as much entitlement. There's more gratitude. You know what I'm saying? You do something, oh my God, thank you so much. Yeah, because the expectation is not to be a quadrillionaire. These people are just looking for a good life and somebody that loves them. So I'm not knocking anybody's passport. Go where you celebrate it. Get your love where you find it. And it's better to be loved over in Japan and tolerated in America, right? But don't sell it like you're doing a moral high ground or like you have found out that just because a woman is in America, it makes her not eligible. That's not it. It's just where her mind is. And more where her mind is than where her body is. Because flying 6,000 miles to avoid growth is not going to change what really needs to be changed. And that's the way you look at relationships. So I wrap it up with saying this. If what you're really looking for is peace and a partnership and a presence, which is not what Paul Pierce is looking for, he's looking for the poo-tang. Then if you're looking for that, start with yourself. If you're looking for poo-tang, then just realize the values aren't different. They're just more upfront because it's clearly transactional when you go overseas. Peace. Go ahead.
The cap here is crazy.
No, go ahead. Nick.
Go ahead, Nick.
Fuck, Jay. I feel like 1 minute you were trying to not say it, and then it sounded like you were saying it, but like explaining why that might be the case. Am I the only one who got that? When you were describing, well, maybe because financial conditions are such that maybe she's gonna. That's what the fuck he's talking about, bro. What the fuck? He is talking about what the passport bros talk about is that when it comes to the values that men value in women, when it comes to marriage and relationships, that women in other countries have that more in mass or in general than women here. Right? Can we have a specific? Y'all be tap dancing like Gregory Hines on some of these conversations, right? We're not talking about everybody. So let's take off the table, okay? So please, nobody said, oh, we're not saying that, right? Can we talk about whether or not, in general, right? Is there some truth to what he's saying, right? Are there women in other cultures outside of the US that might present in a way that is more appealing to men who are marriage minded, right? We can get into the reasons why, but like, are y'all denying that? Or what?
No, it's
Are y'all,
true. But when you get them to America, they become Americanized, and it goes away.
sorry, brother. Save me that umfufu retread, okay? You answered my question. So you're saying that he is right then. You're saying you agree with him if you say what I said was true, right? That in general, there are women in other countries who have a values or a system or whatever, how they show up, that some American men value more. What's so hard to say about that? And let me tell you why I feel like that was rhetorical. Fuck it. Let me tell you why I think it's hard for y'all to say that, right? Because in the last segment, right, we talked about, I think S&M in specifics was talking about how women have progressed in their careers, how sometimes some men are actually in backlash because of how far women have come, yada, yada, in society. Well, if women are more out there doing their thing, making their own choices and living their lives, their body, their choice, etc., being more independent, right? That doesn't seem like a trait or a value or whatever the fuck you want to call it that men would value. Like, who wants that necessarily? I'm not saying it's all women. I'm saying if in general, what you hear is the bad bitches, the boss bitches, whatever you fill in the blank, you know what I'm saying? Lawyer bae, whatever bae, right? These are working women, right? And they have to work. I'm not knocking that. But what I'm saying is with that, right, comes certain ego. You're making your own money. You're doing your own thing. Why should you have to acquiesce? I could do my own. I'm gonna be a rich auntie. We hear the conversations. We hear how some women are saying that they're gonna abdicate having kids, having family. Why? Because so what I'm saying is, are we gonna pretend that what he's saying is not? There's a high level of truth, especially in probably the most industrialized and capitalistic country, right? We forget that the American influence exports. So part of the American culture is this idea that we all out here hustling, working to get it, and family is becoming later in life. There's statistics that talk about the younger generation pushing back when they want to even have kids, let alone marriage, let alone buying homes, right? You're talking about ways that people are untethering themselves to traditions or maybe some values that we might. How many people jump the broom anymore? My point is that it's hard to have these conversations. I'm sorry, maybe that's more traditions. It's hard for us to have these conversations when if we exclude the others, we know there's problems in our community. We know there's issues between men and women, right? We know this. And part of it, yes, is men's fault. I guess however way you want to define it, make more money, be more manly, stop being a sassy. Okay, cool, got it. But guys are also saying, hey, could you be more fit, friendly, and feminine? Right. And then they're saying, hey, there are more of those women over there. And yes, it could be for socioeconomic reasons, but let's not act like most of us in America are making decisions off of socioeconomic issues. Just because they're poorer doesn't mean the motivation changes. The fuck out of here. The difference is that maybe that brother's dollar can stretch a little bit longer. Maybe I should call it wong or whatever the fuck you call it out there. The pesos, the dineros. That's right. It stretches longer. Now, for a Paul Pierce type of dude to say that, I was shocked because, I mean, you would figure that Paul, being a man of means, would be able to get the type of, submission, et cetera, that he'd want. So maybe, I don't know if he was speaking for himself or he was speaking for others or whatever, but for him to say that, maybe he's also saying that where he's at with it in life and the women that he's coming across, that he's also finding that those women tend to be a little bit more. So rather than pushing back on it, women, ladies, right, automatically, because that's the knee-jerk reaction of defensiveness, right? Defensiveness. Can we just acknowledge that, okay, if we have a problem with him saying that, there's only one way to fix it. Tell us that you're not that then. Show up in the way that says, hey, you know what? Paul's not right. I like to submit to my man. You know what I'm saying? I want a family, right? I don't know if I'm hearing more women say, I don't need a man, or I don't need a family, I'm gonna be a rich auntie, versus the women that I'm publicly hearing say, oh, I want a husband. Oh, wait a minute. If they do that in public, they're called pick-me's, right? So what the fuck are we talking about? Even black women who are trying to show you, hey, you guys, I'm here for that. You have other women calling them pick-me's. And them same women who would call them pick-me's would be the same one who have a problem with this to say like somehow it's not true what he's saying. But I'm not calling anybody out specifically about that, but I waited to hear some feedback in regards to how Paul is so wrong about what he just said.
So before you go, Devin, I just want to push back a little bit on the pick me part and clarify the pick me. They're not being called a pick me because they say they want a husband. They're being called a pick me because they do it to the detriment of other women, as in they take steps, i.e., demonize other black women or so forth, or women in general, to be that pick me. Not that, oh, I want a husband. Shit, I have a husband. I love my husband. I don't consider myself a pick me, even though if you look at the whole thing, say, oh, but you were picked. Most men like, oh, but you were picked. But no, the pick me is to the detriment of other women. Their actions is to the detriment, is the part of the definition. But I'm just saying, I just wanted to put that out there. You can look it up on Urban Slang. That's literally the fucking definition of a pick me.
What I'm saying is, the reason why I'm calling cap is because, again, anything that's a slight towards black women, a black woman can say, oh, that's a detriment to black women. So if a black woman is trying to hold other black women accountable in the public space, a woman can use that and say it's pick me. Also, I've heard women who barely even interacted with other women automatically look at that woman as a pick me because of certain things that wasn't even relevant. So I'm saying we got to be careful about that. But the larger point wasn't even about the pick me part. It was about whether or not women who are espousing certain things in public, other women will view them as pick-me's, credibly or not. And I'm telling you, most women that I hear, when they hear other women, they don't go into their backgrounds, none of that. As soon as they hear that kind of talk, they automatically got the little pick-me ears up. So all I'm simply saying is for the women who would do that and then get mad at this, to me, it's incongruent. That's what I'm saying. Right? You can't be like, oh, no, we are the most feminine. We are the most family-oriented. We are the most marriage. And a woman saying that, you're like, no, bitch, shut the fuck up. You can pick me. It's not congruent, is what I'm saying. That's the only point I'm making.
Roger that. Go ahead, Devin.
No, I was going to say, I think Paul's got a point, and we're going to rule out. I'm not talking about the sex tourist guys. We're talking about just about values, guys over there looking for wives and long-term relationships and different things that they value. That's what we're talking about. I haven't personally done a lot of international dating, but from guys that I have talked to that have traveled to a lot of different countries, they said there is a different cultural value mindset. And like it or not, the sisterhood in particular, the dating and sexual marketplace, it's global now. You can't undo it. You're competing with everybody from everywhere. That's where we are now, and it's not going to ever be undone. So, as Nick brought up earlier, like, hey, listen, why stay over here and try to fight for this thing that they don't want to do, and they've said they don't want to do it. They're doing it in bulk over there. Let's just go over there. Like, okay, cool. And that gets to how women will say, oh, well, passport bros are broke or passport bros are dusty. Man, you ever flown to Thailand? That's not broke dude activities. I mean, those two things, they don't even make sense. So stop calling the passport bros broke and dusty and living with their mom. Those things really don't even make sense. So if they're getting more bang for their buck over there, more power to them. You know, and I do want to say, in the DR, a 5 in the DR is like an 8 over here in the States. I just want to say that.
And I would like to add that in the DR, there's an HIV rate that is skyrocketing thanks to the passport bros, and apparently their lack of.
So I got a
passport
bros
for that.
So now you throw up countries that was there before.
But for real though, you can actually look it up. They say there's a rise in HIV overall though, but particularly in the DR. So since you wanted to point that out, I want to say just wrap it up. I support passport bros. I say go where you love.
Wow,
go where you love. Just wrap it up.
Order.
Don't bring shit back. Wrap it up. If you do bring your wife back, then go ahead and make sure she's not here for the green card, because at the end of the day, it's still transactional. They're coming with their values, right? They're coming with the value of being the wife and so forth, because according to the passport bros, that they've been raised to be traditional, i.e. cook, clean, and all that good stuff, which I 100% support them being raised for that. But one thing that we don't talk about, that the passport bros don't talk about, is the fact that their stuff is transactional. You have to come with something, i.e. money. You have to come with, because they don't marry for love. They marry for support, stability, and who can take care of them. They're
Are
not
we talking about the
marrying
women
for
over there or
love.
the women over here?
The
Because if the
women,
I think
argument
you're
is,
I'm
talking about
saying,
both.
I'm talking
because
about both, but
if
they
the
don't
argument,
talk about it. Here is demonized if a woman's looking for stability because she's called a gold digger. But at the same time, over there, it's only in the Western world that women even look for love first, or used to look for love first before it became this whole transactional thing that it is today. Over there, they look for stability first. They're not marrying you because they like, oh, you so cute and I love you. No, they're marrying you because they think they're going to get stability from you, because that's their first and foremost requirement is stability.
What's wrong
So
with that?
what's wrong with that?
no, what I'm saying
The
is that
rub,
passport bros, I don't think there's anything wrong with it. What I'm saying is that when women in America want stability first, they get demonized and called gold diggers.
Less
They
bang
get
for buck.
demonized
Because it's
and
less
say it's
bang for buck, S&M.
transactional.
I'll
That's
Less
tell you,
because
bang
I'll
women
tell
for
you
in
buck.
why.
America want stability on the first date. That's why. Like, what is that? They
And
want a down payment. Go
They
ahead.
want that
First of all,
overseas
you
too. But
can't
go
even
ahead, Delvin.
talk to a past. You can't even
Really?
get into a conversation unless you bring stability to these other women. I'm
and that's
supporting though. Once again,
That's
I
not true.
support it.
That's
I
not
say
true.
go ahead. Look, I say go ahead. I think you should go where you love. For those who don't have a passport, I encourage them to get a passport because I think you should go. I think there's women everywhere. So go where you love. What I'm saying is stop demonizing us for the same shit you're getting from over there, i.e. the whole transactional relationship that you keep kind of clowning us for, when in reality they're looking for the same thing. They don't even think about love first. They think about stability first. They think about lineage first. They think about what can I do to make sure that whatever children I have are protected. But we're demonized for that. That's all I'm saying. I don't care if passport bros go get their rocks off, if they come back and with a wife or without a wife. I don't care about any of that. What I'm saying is stop demonizing us. And in particular, Paul Pierce, in particular, he said American women was too busy twerking. And I was like, what women are he talking about? Because on my
At
timeline, on
brunch.
my feed, say again,
At brunch. Yeah. So remember, he's talking
that
about
means
brunch.
he's watching the wrong thing, because I know a whole lot of
Ma'am, you're
women
married and you're in the house.
and they're not.
You're married in the house.
I'm saying it doesn't matter that I'm married in the house.
It does matter.
I have friends who are single. What I'm
Friends
saying
are
is, what the
twerking?
hell is he watching? I'm saying that there's a social media propaganda that's constantly putting black women in negative lights because it's benefit to keep black women in a negative light. Y'all think this divide is by on purpose? Yes, we do have bad characters, just like y'all have bad characters for black men. But we don't constantly say, oh, well, we need to get passport because y'all thugs, y'all
Do say that.
criminals,
Wait.
y'all this,
Wait.
y'all that. But here we got Paul Pierce on his platform saying American black women, all they doing is twerking. Okay, sir. That's one subset. That's one group. I'm
And
just
this is
Cardi
saying
a,
B.
stop
and look, I gotta say this real
generalizing
quick.
us.
This is a Western thing because if you look at, who marries out the most? It ain't black men, it's white men. They've been doing this stuff for years. It's just kind of last come up in the black, spaces last couple of years. That's who's doing it the most.
Oh, no,
And
go ahead.
well, and the point that I want to address at him is, yeah, you're right the right to roast about the economics of it here. Like, look, they want the same thing that you want, but yeah, I don't have a problem with the inflated prices, and that's okay.
Right. So what Devin's saying is there's a discount. And Nick, I know you're about to say something. I'll be real short. Cardi B and who's that? Sexy Red. Now they are not my particular ideas for role models, but they are iconic women in American culture right now. Okay. Both of these women, I think, would tell you in a minute they can't cook and they can't clean. Cardi wrote a whole song about it.
But she still got that ring.
But she still got that ring, right? And the expectation, the entitlement I'm speaking of, is the idea that you don't have to have some basic skills in order to secure the ring or secure the bag. That is the value I think he might be talking about. So pushback on S&M, all that BS she was talking about. And just a few
None of it
short
is
sentences.
BS. This is transactional. None of it's BS.
I'm gonna ask you before I continue, I'm gonna just ask you a simple question. So you believe that American women are more family oriented than some of these other less developed countries?
I'm not saying that. What
I
saying,
know you're not saying that. I'm just asking a very simple question because there's a larger point that I want to make, and so it's not a trick question. I think it's a legit question because that's the point of the topic. As I'm looking at the pre-production, uh, uh, Paul Pierce made waves claiming that American women lack the values, and I assume them to mean in regards to when it comes to family, like prioritizing family regardless of the reason, right? I'm asking you, Do you disagree with that statement on the face of it, right? Because I want to see if we're going to be honest a little bit in terms of whether or not you think that American women are as family
No,
and
they're not.
family first oriented.
No, they're not.
Okay, cool. I'm glad we could just arrive at that, right? Because I don't think there's anything wrong in acknowledging that, right? If a person feels some type to me, so I feel like if you agree with me, that doesn't mean he's bashing American women. Now, if you're talking about the part where he says, oh, they're twerking and the other attributes, I can see where you're going with that, but I'm going to give him license for creative flair because he's doing a fucking podcast. And I do that sometimes too. So maybe that's why, and I think you do that sometimes too. So I'm going to give him a pass on that. But if we're talking about the meat of what he's talking about, and you agree with what he's saying, that's not where the conversation is. But here's how my brain works. When I hear a complaint, my brain says, okay, if I have a problem with it, how can I address it? Why do you feel that way? Is there some truth there? Are there some things I need to look inwardly that I want to change because I'm unsettled? That's one approach. The other approach is I don't give a fuck. He's right. I'm gonna still go find me a man because, like Jay said, I don't got to do none of those things, and I can still go out there and find a man. So that guy who doesn't value those same things, he's gonna be over there, and then you wasn't checking for him in the first place, right? So I'm just trying to. So my brain just kind of shifts through. That's the logic side of me shifting through, and I guess because it's not talking about me specifically, maybe I'm not emotional about it, right?
I'm not
But
emotional.
I
I
didn't
just
say you
wanted to
were,
make
but I
sure
guess
because it was to
apparently
me,
Hip
it
Dog.
seemed like you implied. No, it seemed like you applied that I was being emotional because I'm the only woman on the panel speaking about it.
You are not emotional, S&M. It's just your ears.
Yeah.
I got
Whatever. Look, all I know is this. Go ahead, finish your statement because I have a question for you guys. Why? So finish your statement because I have a question for you guys.
Although, listen, because I was going to also say, because I got to be fair and balanced. The passport shit, because I didn't really want to talk about passport bros specifically. I get they're the ones who kind of hijack this idea that you can go to other countries or whatever. But if you're being honest, I feel like a lot of that is a front. I don't think it's real. It goes back to what I was saying earlier about the manosphere space and people selling people pipe dreams. In fact, one of the videos that I saw the guy paying $3,000 for the pickup artist bullshit was in, I think, Colombia. Right? So yes, I think there's a bunch of grifters in the space selling people on this dream because guess what? When y'all niggas go overseas, if you don't know the language, it's going to be a tough ride. Right? You got to be committed enough to try to learn the language, try to learn enough about the culture. I get that it looks cute on an Instagram video for a weekend or whatnot, but if you're talking about making a serious commitment to find a wife, there's more you got to do to kind of build a life or at least understand the life down there. So when I hear people talk, I know a lot of this bullshit. That's why I don't really give a fuck about the passport bros. A lot of them niggas, yes, some guys are traveling, some guys get great content, but the truth of it is most of them niggas ain't out there looking for the wives. Most of them niggas ain't really traveling like that, right? And most of them niggas ain't got game for real, for real. I'm being honest. At least the ones that I have been in the company of seeing in certain spots. It's like, wow, dude, calm that shit down, my guy. I'm about to tell myself, yo, you be at a spot, you be like, damn, dog, you don't even have to work that hard, my G. What are you doing? You're making us look bad.
Yeah, if you need 3,000 for somebody to tell you how to pick up somebody in Colombia, you're doing it wrong.
Come on, dog, right? So
you're corny over here, you're corny over there.
No, because I feel like it's one of those things that became a boogeyman, right? The whole thing, even with the passport bros, what they're really saying, the ones who ain't really out there, because I'll be honest, I haven't seen too many of them come back with wives. That's why I'm saying that. If I'm wrong, all y'all passport bros out there who found y'all wives and shit, please let me know. What's ironic is I have a close friend who did find him a significant other who does mean something to him, and I can see that relationship developing. So I'm not saying it can't happen. But what I'm saying is, by and large, by the numbers, it's not happening like that. So we talk about them like they're real for real, and they're not. And the ones who are actually getting married, they're not on the social media like that for real, for real. You know what I'm saying? They're just living their fucking lives. So I just got to say, push back on that. But the true conversation that we run from is whether or not women are showing up the way that they think they are or the way that men want them to. And there's a conversation to be had there. And actually, the last thing I'm going to say too on this, and I'll shut up. So listen, I'm part traditional and I'm part modern, right? So in my household, we kind of run a mixture of both. And I found a partner who that works with. I think this idea that women or men are going to be all these one things, that's a lie too. Because some guys don't want all that. You get bored with the shit. Maybe she ain't the best cook. She's doing the best she can. You can't really complain, right? But it's like, y'all expect her to be the best cook, the best maids, the best fuck. Nah, dog. To understand you, to be able to communicate, for her to be emotionally intelligent. Sometimes you got to pick the basket of the things you prioritize and run the fuck with it. Okay. So all this talk about you going to get this because each option comes with a flip side. So just like Black women or American women have a flip side, and guess what? So does Mariella. Okay. You just at least know what that flip side is and make sure it lines up with your priorities. That's all I'm saying. Mariella's idol.
Good advice.
So the question that I had for you guys though was that oftentimes when these passport bros talk about femininity is actually a code word for submission, right? And when we talk about values, once again, is code for submission. You guys made an excellent point of breaking down family values, starting a family and so forth. But a lot of times in these echo chambers, it seems to be just about submission and American women not submitting, while you guys identified the value thing. So here's my question. So to me, and I could be wrong, since a lot of the conversation seems to center on submission versus what you guys identify as value, this is my question, then are the men actually just seeking control versus partnership? And the reason why I wanted to ask this was because a lot of times when American, i.e. Americanized women or whatnot, or us in America, we have a tendency to want partnerships. So I'm asking, is this really just a way to seek control versus true partnership?
Partnership is
Answer this
beautiful.
quickly.
Partnership is beautiful. So of course everybody wants partnership. As far as control and submission, you can't have a stable, healthy family dynamic if you don't have a clear hierarchy, some sort of chain of command, some sort of order in a relationship. One of these, if two people are together, one of them has to have 51% at least. And the other one's got to have 49. If they both got 50-50, then whenever they disagree, they're at a deadlock. And there's sometimes you can't afford that. A move has to be made. So I think that one of the things that passport bros are reaching for when they go overseas is they're reaching for people who come from cultures where it's already been established that the man is going to make that decision. And that level of submission or whatever is already built in and layered in. And maybe that's the value that they're looking for when they go overseas. That answers your question. Control, but not control to dominate, but control to protect, to regulate, right? To move, motivate, to build. Go ahead, y'all.
I'm still trying to wrap my mind around, because I don't know, we said submission one time in this conversation.
I started off by stating in the actual echo chamber, it's always been about submission. I also point out that you guys talked about values. That's why I wanted to ask that question, because while we talk about values, family values, a lot of times when the passport bros talk, they're actually talking about submission.
I don't necessarily know if I buy that. You said a lot of times when they talk, they're talking about submission. I don't. I think they might be talking about family values, right? But here's the other thing too, right? I think the submission thing is overplayed too, man. People submit in various forms to various things. Like you want somebody who's going to agree and submit to you 100% of the time. Okay, cool. Go find that person who's not going to have an opinion at all. Okay, whatever. I don't think that's realistic for real. Like, I think that if we're really talking about cooperation, I think that's a better word that men are trying to say, but maybe some men are trying to communicate, and it sounds like what you're hearing is submission. Yeah, at least I think that's what I hear, because honestly, I don't even want to get too far down this rabbit hole because we're already late on the show. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know if anybody else wants to answer that question. I'll just shut up. In regards to whether or not men are secretly seeking control, which is what these passport bros are looking for when I guess they are looking for partners. Is that the question essentially?
Basically, I think it's tied into sometimes it can be tied into their identification or identity of masculinity.
I mean, I'll say this much though, right? I think the problem is sometimes women want men to show up a certain type of way, and I think men aren't allowed to have expectations for women to show up a certain type of way. And that's where the crux of the conversation is. Even if there are women who are willing to be submissive, it's almost like, you got to meet up to do this, for me to get this, or well, I got to do that. Shouldn't you naturally be this way? It just becomes like this windmilling cycle where people aren't being real. But the truth is, they're all full of shit. But that's all I got on that, though. I think a lot of these people should be talking full of shit. Anything else, Devin, on this?
Yeah, no, I think part of that disconnect is the value add, the value proposition. I'm getting more value. Assuming I'm looking for a wife. Assume that's where we're starting. Over there, I'm getting more value for what if I'm going to spend it over here, either way, I'm getting more value over there. And versus shaming the guys and finger wagging at them, I've yet to see women say, you know what? Let's look. Maybe they have a point. The thought that the passport bros have a point never enters the women's heads. They're by definition they're bad, or they're pervs, or they're disingenuous. So I think that's problematic. Women starting from that proposition that it's not a good faith conversation being had.
That's because they don't really care about those guys. And,
That's
I'm not mad at them because they're not attracted to the guys typically that would probably
I
be
was just
seen
gonna
as a
say that.
passport, bro.
Right.
And so, aside from the fact there's already a question about whether or not women care about the men they're actually with, we certainly know when it comes to the men that they're not attracted to or don't have any care for, they can give two fucks, which is why this conversation is fascinating to me whenever they get upset about it, because you wouldn't fuck him anyway. Their attitude, like S&M, should be, hey, good riddance.
That
You're
actually
Right.
is the attitude. The attitude is good riddance. Don't let the door hit you where the good Lord split you.
But you're talking as a married ass woman
I'm
who,
saying this is the attitude. I'm also just like you have 3 men on the panel representing the various men perspectives. I'm trying to represent a variety of women perspectives. So
Okay, well, listen, as long as you accept the accountability of representing all women, that's cool. I didn't want to put that on you. It's okay if you don't want to
Right.
represent every woman. If all women are not in you in this moment, pause if
ew.
necessary. Anything you want done, baby, I can do it naturally. Whoa.